3 of the 5 largest search portals in the United States are either owned by a lender or own a lender. So that's a dramatic departure of once what the world looked like before. Then the other thing that we've consistently seen is what I would call the death of the pay-per-lead model. So once upon a time when I got my license 20 years ago, there was a lot of companies like HomeGain who used to sell a zip code, a certain amount of leads, and it was more of a monthly reoccurring service. We've seen a very strong pivot towards these companies becoming what is called a success fee, where the agent then pays a referral at closing for that. And so with that, we've now seen a lot more of the business have these referrals that are due at settlement, coupled with the vertical integration we're seeing and this consolidation moment, right? So Compass and Anywhere all own attached services, as do we, as do many small regional to very small players. And so what we're doing is the continuation of what we do, which is consumer first and massive transparency. And in this era where the probability of a service being referred even going up further than it has in the past, we just want to make sure that the consumer has all the information, and we're doubling down on making sure that they understand that there is choice in this process.
I think what's so key here is Leo's talking about the paradigm shift, and really the genesis out of this came from NXT and the NAR meetings just a couple of weeks ago. What we thought was going to pass the board of directors and the delegate body as far as a new disclosure as with regard to broker-to-broker referrals, that didn't fail, or it didn't pass the delegate body. And as a result, we knew immediately we needed to take action. And so what this looks like, and I want to give a huge shout out before we go, say thank you to Northwest, as they changed their forms back in August, requiring broker-to-broker disclosure on referrals. And now California Realtors is stepping forward, as are we. And then Benchmark Realty almost recently has announced that they will be disclosing. Why this is so important is across our industry, very typically, as Leo says, we get a referral, we take care of the client, we close the deal, we pay the other broker. It's really important in that transparency that we're continuing to let the client know what our fee for service is, where it goes, and who is a part of that. And so as a result, we have created new forms to help really drive forward what you can expect. Consumer transparency is our core focus.
And so one thing that hasn't changed is we're continuing to be as transparent as possible. So we want to make sure that everyone knows who's being paid. You will find in our unique forms, the listing agreement, the buyer agreement, that we embedded it right into the listing or the buyer agency form, because Holly and I believe that when you are negotiating compensation is the perfect moment to disclose if there's an outside referral fee that is owed. And then if you're choosing to use your state or local association forms, which you have the ability to do, we have a standalone form that will clearly discuss that. So it is important to distinguish the two. So we're on the referral fee form and comment. So I'll pass it over to Holly here.
Yeah, and really, we wanted to keep it simple. This is what you can trust from eXp. Always, we are going to make our forms easy to read, easy to understand. We don't want a whole lot of verbiage when what could be said in a few words doesn't need 10 paragraphs. And so this is our standalone form that is available to all eXp agents and anyone in the industry. So it's agnostic. And it basically says, hey, I'm paying this outside brokerage a referral fee for their referral of you to me. And so when we close escrow, this is what will happen with the compensation that I've earned. I will pay a portion back. And it's really important. And as Leo said, we also wanted to make it easy. If you are using an eXp form for our listing or our buyer broker, we've already embedded that information there, so you won't need this form.
And just to make it clear, what you're disclosing is the percentage and the company. So fill in the blank referral company that you work for with, as well as the percentage. So 25, 30, 40%, whatever it is, you just put it right on the form. And so we made it fillable to make it super simple.
And doing it at time of engagement, as Leo said, is so important because you're already negotiating with the client. You need to be able to tell them what it takes for you to help them buy a house, help them sell their house. And it makes fully transparent everything that's going on. See, we're no longer just opening up doors. we're walking people through the single largest transaction of their life, and we're walking them through forms, we're walking them through legalese and disclosures and all of these other things that maximizing your value to your client. It's that point of differentiation. But this is the other thing we see. EXP, we're in all 50 states. And so by doing this form now, it allows us consistency across our company. But we're not alone. We're going to see this nationally. We thought it was going to come down through the National Association of Realtors and what they were doing, but unfortunately it didn't. Now we're going to see this being taken on by states like California or by MLSs like Northwest MLS, and we'll see it start to move across the United States. What becomes so important for you and I is to make sure that we have consistency in how we show up for the consumer. And Leo, this is the thing that I think is so important, is breaking down the 3 different kinds of referrals, because this really gets really messed up. And what we created a form for was the broker to broker referral. This is a new disclosure that many people have not put in writing before. That's okay. We're doing it now either via the buyer broker or the listing agreement or in our standalone form. But there have been other very common referrals that we've done in the past that many of you are comfortable with. And the other most common is you as an agent referring service providers to your client through the course of their transaction. This is something that you've either done verbally, saying, hey, these are title companies that I work with, or these are great lenders I work with, or home warranty, whatever it might be. What we found is that consistency in being able to give you something that you can do over and over, easily repeatable, while also disclosing to the consumer, hey, they've got choice. We've created a form just to make it easier for you. This is one that is not required by our company, but it's a good best practice. And then, of course, the final that we're all very accustomed to is the broker or agent to client when we have a financial interest as a brokerage. And this is the affiliated business disclosure or affiliated business arrangement. That ABA is required by RESPA. It's something we've always been doing as an industry. Great. We're going to continue forward with that.
So just a clarification, right? The first form is the one we invented. That is where we think the industry is going. So directionally accurate, to Holly's point, the NXT board, it did not make it, but we fully anticipate that through rulemaking, it's coming from NAR this year or as soon as next year. We are seeing states do it. So again, we don't have the luxury of waiting state by state because we operate in 50 states in the volume we do. So we went ahead and did it. The second one is also a new form. And the distinction is this one's not required, but we believe it's a best practice where when you refer any service provider, that you refer more than one. We'll cover that form in detail. And then again, we made the press release and announced this launch last week. So Holly and I had the ability to read quite a bit of comments on the internet. And so the ABA RESPA required form has always existed with us and has always been a required disclosure form.
And that's where I so appreciate the comments that we were seeing a lot through a lot of social media. I want to break down these myths because they're definitely out there. And myth versus reality, what have we disclosed? What haven't we? I don't need an accredited or an affiliated buyer disclosure because I don't get any money. No, that's not the case. If your brokerage, if your team leader has an affiliation or a financial stake because they are working with a lender or a home warranty or something along those lines, you absolutely must make that disclosure in writing, period. Your brokerage many times is already furnishing that, and that's part of your required documents. Now, the ABA, is that the same as the new referral disclosure? No. The referral disclosure is truly broker to broker. That is different. Those are not settlements. I am actually paying an outside brokerage for the privilege of working with that client. And so this is something, again, new this summer that we saw from an MLS. Now we're seeing from a state association. We did think that it was going to come through the Code of Ethics, and NAR may revisit that in the new year. But for now, we're going to continue down this road of being forward thinking and proactive because we are in all 50 states. Leo, you want to add anything here?
No, I think that really sums it up, right? This is not instead of, this is in addition to. So these forms are to be added when necessary, right? So if you are doing a broker-to-broker referral, receiving one, you disclose it to that party at the time of compensation conversation. And then secondly, this form we're looking at right now, the consumer choice one, is not instead of your ABA disclosure, right? This is in addition to, and Holly, kick us off and explain what the thought process here was.
Yeah. And so, when I was selling full time, I always had certain service providers that I would recommend. Home inspectors, right? So I'd have their name, their phone number, their company, their website. That way clients could go look at past inspections, maybe lenders, title or escrow. And I had that and I would send it out in an email. We wanted to formalize it a bit more, really helping our consumer understand they have a choice. And so you as the agent have the ability to pre-fill out, hey, these are common people in the area that I've either worked with or past clients have raved about and had experience with. And again, lender, home inspector, closing service, title, home warranty, you name it. And so this is a 2-page form that allows you to give this upfront to the client and they get to choose. And so if you are working with say you're on a team and the team has a certain person that they work with quite a bit, great. You're making that disclosure, but you're always going to refer more than one. And this is the thing that I want you to put in your pocket for later. Always more than one and less than the phone book. And the reason I say it like that is our fiduciary has always been choice. Give the clients more than one choice. Give them why that person has been so good or referred to. And then never abdicate your fiduciary by saying, hey, use the phone book, because do you know some service providers that maybe aren't the best fit, that maybe don't quite fit what that client needs? If you're aware of those, you probably should let the client know there might be somebody better. So as a result, it could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 5. Choose based on what the client's needs are, maybe, and then that's up to location. It could be on price point. If it's a luxury home, if it's land, all of those things, really dive in and make best recommendations for that client.
So one thing to point out here, the first couple of paragraphs are that very specific consumer disclosure that just specify to the customer, hey, you may ask me for some service providers, but by no means are you required to use them. You have the right as a consumer to go out and shop any service you'd like. And then to Holly's point, for us that have had our license for a long time, I got licensed 23 years ago, and that was the kind of the best practices. If you're going to refer one, refer 3. Right? So that's why we've memorialized it with fillable blank lines. You can pre-write them or you can do them at the time. But what we're suggesting is never just give one referral, give more than one based on previous experiences, and you can be able to, explain the pros and cons of the experiences you've had.
What I love is we're always in motion here. And so the key in all of this, in your big takeaways, is 3. 1, new. We've got the disclosure, which is broker to broker referral. And that's going to be in the form of your listing agreement or your buyer broker if you're using the EXP forms, or if you're using your state or local forms, great. We've got a standalone referral acknowledgement or basically disclosure that we want you to use. The best practice is the form we just went through. It's that referral to more than one, maybe upwards of 3. Take a look at that and use that in your business practice. Again, it's a transparency. And then finally, your brokerage is always going to require the affiliated business arrangement, that ABA. Yeah, that didn't go anywhere. Please continue to use that, because if there is any kind of financial activity, again, we're a company that has a lender. We need to disclose that up front. It's only appropriate. And so be consistent in how you're taking care of the client, be proactive in how you're discussing these, and then make sure you've got it in writing, because if it's in writing, it happened.
So again, the closing thought is the world is different. We have not been in an environment where, one, we had mega brokerages, right? The concept of what we do as a single independent entity didn't exist 10 years ago at scale. And now there's more than one of us who operate in 50 states as one entity, meaning we're now subjected to having to think through, okay, if the industry is going in a certain way, if consumer advocacy is going in a certain way, how do we get in front of it? And how do we make it simple legible, where you don't need a law degree in order to interpret it. That's the litmus test that Holly and I put everything through as we're thinking up these forms. And so here's a QR code. We've updated our toolkits available to everyone. So if you're watching this and you're not with our brokerage and you are hoping to adopt some of this because you've been watching the NXT meetings closely, feel free to take our forms, take the language, adopt the whole form, part of the form, whatever you need. By the way, if you guys find things out in the field and you feel that there's friction points in the conversation, we're a super flat organization, as you well know. Please DM Holly or I, and we'd love to just jump in the weeds and troubleshoot with you guys.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, we're looking to where we go in 2026 and making things better. And we just believe a rising tide raises all ships. So we're not going to wait. We're going to be proactive, and we're always